Come on, Livingston, we're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Now can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hay celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We're gonna go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name is Angus and today I'm joined by Ewan. How are you doing, Ewan?
Not too bad, considering the result yesterday was a bit, a bit of a downer, but it's Masters weekend, so plenty of golf to watch. Some folk might find golf boring, but the Masters is exquisite, so that'll keep me occupied.
I'm exactly one of those people. Golf is absolutely terrible. But yeah, once again, we're absolutely delighted to welcome Bruni back. What's made you join us this week, Callum?
I just thought I'd keep you company this week. Obviously, Andrew Semple has declined an invite to this Zoom, so it's absolutely disgusting from him. So I thought I'd come out and come back to the podcast and talk everything. I love talking about 6-0 defeat, so that's why I'm here.
Well, we're glad to have you. As you said, Andy's not here. Basically we've taken hammering and he's went running. Just says all you need to know about that guy. But yeah, you can listen to this episode and all.
Whoa, sorry, Angus. Andy doesn't run anywhere. Let's make that abundantly clear. That boy's never ran in his life.
As I was saying, you can listen to this episode and all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming sites. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube, plus loads more, so just search Talk Livi. Follow us and subscribe if you can so you won't miss another episode. We'll look back at what was a tough afternoon at Celtic Park as the Lions were mauled in Glasgow, and finally we'll round it off with a look ahead to the Scottish Cup tie with Aberdeen at Pittodrie.
It's clear that Celtic didn't like our overconfidence in our predictions for yesterday's game and took it as a personal insult as Livy succumbed to their heaviest defeat since their return to the top flight. Lads, we'll just dive right into it. What went wrong?
For me, what went wrong mainly was the fact that there was no stream to watch. As usual, Celtic third time this season, and obviously it's not just for us. They failed to make it possible for away fans to watch the game, which is, stupid in all honesty. One of the biggest clubs in the country, not offering fans during this time the actual chance to properly see this game. So, in all honesty, guys, I've only probably seen maybe 20, 30 minutes of that, and whenever sports scene was on, I wasn't exactly jumping at the bit to go and catch up on the highlights. So there's nothing really like wanting to go and see your team getting six scudded past them. But from what I was seeing in the first 20 minutes, it did look as if we were going there with a kind of plan to go toe-to-toe. I'm sure Callum will probably delve into that a wee bit more, but I'm assuming that that's kind of what went wrong. For a team like us to kind of go to Celtic Park and try and outdo Celtic with the quality that they have probably was very naive, and we probably ended up getting quite a few goals because of that, because of being quite open at times. But yeah, not an easy one to take, as I imagine you guys will go and dive into.
Yeah, Bruni, you were obviously at the game. I was lucky enough. A couple of pals that are Celtic fans offered me the season ticket details. I regret asking now. But Bruni, you were obviously there. What did you make of it?
So Aberdeen will be tough next week, won't it? I thought, to be honest, I think James Forrest makes a massive difference to Celtic. I thought he was outstanding at times yesterday. If I was a Celtic fan, I'd be asking where's that team been all season, because I thought they were very, very good. I don't know. You can look at maybe us in terms of shape. Maybe we went too attacking. You could argue. I think we played. It was a diamond at times. We played. With Forrest up there with Jet, but we got into some dangerous positions early on. First half an hour was probably even, I would say. They were, Celtic scored with their first real chance of the whole game after half an hour. Both teams trying to sort of figure each other out and things like that. But yeah, they moved the ball about very well. I think we'll be disappointed with a lot of the goals that conceded from a defensive point of view. The fifth one, Ayer just drives through the whole team basically, no challenge. There's a couple of nice goals from Celtic's point of view, a couple of nice moves. The first one in particular. Second one's unlucky from a Livingston standpoint. The ball down the left and it's deflected over McCrory and Turnbull's there to tap it in. But there was a few really nice goals from Celtic. Elyounoussi was very, very good. David Turnbull's a player that I've spoken about countless times. I really admire him. I think he's a top player. And as I said, James Forrest, I think, really makes a difference to them. He gives Celtic real width, and his movement's incredible at times. He gives defences all sorts of problems, occupies positions and occupies other defenders, and that allows the likes of your Edwards, your Elyounoussis to move about the other side of the park. So, it's definitely one to forget. As you said, our biggest defeat since we returned to the top flight. We've probably had one of them coming for 3 seasons now. But, I wouldn't say I'm not bothered, because obviously I'm bothered. It's a bit of an embarrassing defeat and things like that. But, it's not a meaningless game again, but it just felt a bit flat yesterday. It just felt a wee bit like a training game that, Celtic got their first goal. It didn't really matter to them or anything. And it was, as I say, just a day to forget. And yeah, that's really all I've got to add on that.
It does make a difference that this kind of defeats came whilst we're secured top 6. I mean, if it came earlier in the season, we'd definitely probably be like, oh dear. But I guess the fact that we are in this kind of position does take a wee bit of the gleam off. I mean, it's never ever good getting beat 6-0. There's no real way to kind of defend or take many positives from that. But because we are in that situation, I mean, we are going to be playing the better teams essentially. And in all honesty, the last 5 games, there may be a lot of defeats coming our way. But we'd rather be in this position than we'd be where the likes of Dundee United and St Mirren that are, than they're facing the likes of like Hamilton and Motherwell, Kilmarnock and that, who are down at the bottom. But was there any, I've kind of just like briefly touched on it there, is there anything positive to take from this? One of the main things I've seen from Twitter kind of gauging the reaction on the game was the performance of Robbie McCrory. So, strange one. It appears that the first 2 goals seems to be McCrory's fault, but it's also McCrory's, thankful for McCrory that it wasn't in double figures. Where does this lie for you guys? Did McCrory have a good game? Did he have a couple of things that he could have maybe done better, or is it just the same, our support kind of doing the same thing with McCrory that we've seen countless times this season?
Look, before I get into my regurgitated thoughts with Robbie, kind of to touch on the game as a whole, look, at the end of the day, I think we've done very well against the Old Firm, and the 3 seasons we've been back in the top flight, and better teams than ourselves have succumbed to hammerings at the hands of the Old Firm. You look at Hamilton earlier in the season, was it 8? They got hit for it at Ibrox. The Old Firm are capable of doing that to better teams than ourselves. I'm still obviously bitterly disappointed, but a bit like you, Angus, the first 25-30 minutes I thought we were well in the game, but I think there was warning signs. I think tactically how we set up when we lost the ball, we seemed to be playing quite narrow, and I think that's we've maybe fallen foul of the fact that Celtic have been playing that diamond and quite narrow. Sybil seemed to be dropping in to make it a 3 with him, Bartley and Holt, and as you kind of touched on, Bruni, Forrest and Pitts were almost trying to man Mark McGregor and Brown when they got the ball. But I think that offered up the wide areas a bit, And as you say, Forrest offers that bit of width. El Yunusi was offering it yesterday as well. And I think there was 2 or 3 warning signs where they got in behind us in the wide areas. And it's inevitably where the first goal comes from. I think Sybil loses Forrest. And for the first goal, in terms of Robbie, I think if Forrest catches it clean, he's probably got a better chance of saving it. I think the fact that he scuffs it has probably outdone Robbie. The second one, I'm sorry, but what can you really expect from Robbie there? The ball's taking a massive deflection. Robbie's ready for the pullback. You can clearly see that. The ball's taking a deflection, looked over him, and it's a tap-in. But I think first half, I don't think we were that bad first half. But I think it's, if you go back to our first game when we came back up, we were 2 down at half-time. We conceded within the first 5-10 minutes. But what we did is we kind of showed it up and just tried to make sure we didn't take a battering, and you obviously got to go 3-1 it finished. And it was kind of similar yesterday. The own goal goes in and you maybe just go, look, just take a medicine, kind of shore up a bit and take the kind of 3-0 and no come away here with a really bad hammering. And I think we played a bit too open. I think we kind of were still going a bit toe-to-toe with them and we're a bit gun-ho. And I think it just gave, when you give Celtic and some of the players that they've got little pockets of space to cause damage, that's kind of what happened. And as you touched on, the 5th goal was really poor in the sense that, you know, Ayer's been allowed to travel 30, 40 yards with the ball without a challenge. It's really poor. And then the 6th one just tops it all off. Effie has an easy ball back to Robbie and he tries to square it across the park and Christie's latched onto it and tucked it away. But in terms of Robbie, I think the score could have been 11 or 12 if it wasn't for him yesterday. I think he pulled off 5 or 6 tremendous saves during the game. But look, some folk are never going to take them. That, I think that's quite evident. I've been one of Robbie's biggest defenders. I mean, I was critical of him last week for the goal because I do think he was at fault. But for me, I don't think any of the goals are Robbie's doing. And if anything, you know, having spoke to Roddy McKenzie after a 7-0 defeat, he doesn't take any pride in being, you know, one of the better players in the park in a defeat like that. I'm sure Robbie's not going to be taking pride in conceding 6 goals, especially the fact that he is a Rangers player. He's not going to take any pride in conceding 6 goals at Celtic Park. But, you know, Robbie, I think he kept the score below double figures yesterday with some of the saves that he made. But I think it was a naive performance. I think, as I say, when we went 3 down, I think we really should have taken our medicine. I think Davy was a bit late in reacting to go to like a 5 at the back when he pulled Allo, and I think he maybe should have done that a wee bit quicker, and because a lot of the problems were coming in the wide areas for me.
Now, Robbie McCrory's an absolute scapegoat for fans. I just don't get it at all. You know me, I'm one to defend goalkeepers regularly, but
I mean, you pay a membership for the union, so yeah.
Definitely. No, but I mean, you've said it there. I don't know what he can do for all of the goals. Again, you've talked through all the goals. Forrest, again, if he hits it properly, again, as you say, doesn't go. Robbie probably saves it. The fact he's mishit it is, you know, detrimental to Robbie. I looking at the goals, I don't. Christie's one's on a plate. Elyounoussi with a great finish. 2 great finishes actually. One from outside the box. He's curled it near enough top corner. The Turnbull goal, you know, it's taken away from him. I just don't see what he can do. And again, as you touched on, he kept us in the game. 4 or 5 really good saves. You know, you got 1 point blank from Brown, a couple from Elyounoussi. He's got 1 right in the top corner, which, you know, is a very, very good save in any game, no matter the circumstances. I don't like to compare them. I don't like to go, oh, if Max was in this would have happened, blah blah blah. Because it's all if, buts, and maybes. But I don't see, if you put a lot of goalkeepers in, I don't see them saving, you know, 5 or 6 of those goals. I really don't. I think they still concede 5 or 6 yesterday. But you know, it's just a frustrating one. I do. Though there was a slight positive, I'm sure, which we'll get on to just now, is the fact that we saw Alan Lithgow back on. Obviously, been a very tough time of it for him. Spoke to him a couple of times and things, and I think he's obviously delighted to be back. It's I think I was looking at my notes yesterday. It was the 21st of December, I think, 2019. We won 4-0 against Ross County. Yeah, Dyke scored his hat trick. That was a great night. But that was his last game for Livingston. So obviously delighted to see him back, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Former captain, obviously had to kind of give up the kind of captaincy really because of obviously the kind of, was it appendicitis he had? He had to get his appendix removed or something.
Originally, I think it was he got his appendix removed, and then he's had all these issues with his hip. It seems as well. So it's great to see him back.
Yeah. So obviously he was such an integral part of like those teams that kind of came up through the divisions. Obviously with Gallagher and Halkett, he's maybe like the underrated aspect of that trio. In all honesty, I mean, obviously Gallagher's went on to play for the national team. Halkett went on to Hearts, and he was obviously top goal scorer for like a couple of seasons and that as well. So yeah, it's absolutely great to see him back, and it's another option that we have. Hopefully he can get back to like full kind of sharpness and that, and he would be another good asset to have. It'll be good to see him get some minutes at the end for the coming into the end of the season with the last couple of games coming along. They are going to be tough games, and I think he'll relish that opportunity to be playing against the best teams essentially. So, and it's something he deserves. He deserves these games against Rangers, against like Aberdeen and all of that, like playing against the best sides, because he has been a terrific servant, and hopefully he's one who will get some more time at the club. Obviously, I think his contract might be out at the end of the season. If he can get himself back to kind of full sharpness and that, there's no reason why we couldn't keep him as another option at centre half. Obviously, we've got just Fitzwater, Guthrie, and Effie. It's just more competition again, which would do us a world of good, I think.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see Al back. Obviously, he's been an integral part, as you said, Angus, of the success of the club over the last few years. And obviously, last season was very difficult for him. He was in and out of the team quite a lot because of injuries, and as you mentioned, Bruni, it's almost 15-16 months since his last appearance against Ross County, and it is fantastic to see him back. I'm sure it's been a very difficult kind of 15-16 months for him, but he's obviously done a lot of hard work with Andy off the pitch, getting himself back ready to play. And as you said, it would be great to see him try and get a couple of games under his belt before the end of the season. As I say, he's a club legend, and it's fantastic to see him back on the park. It was also beautiful to see him take a long throw. I've missed that long throw. Oh,
definitely.
I never thought I'd miss a long throw that much, but God, I miss Alan Lithgow's heat map long throw going out to the touchlines. That's beautiful.
But yeah, definitely one to forget for us. We'll move on quickly and we'll go talk about the Aberdeen game. It's a quick return to Cup football as Livi travel north to face Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup with the incentive of a home quarter-final up for grabs. So the game next Sunday, one of the toughest ties we probably could have got. Yeah,
it probably is. I mean, I know we've won at Pittodrie earlier in the season, but our record there hasn't been great, and our overall record against Aberdeen in recent years hasn't been great. So it probably is one of the tougher ties. I know Aberdeen haven't been on a great run of form recently, but they picked up a big win at McDermott Park, which, you know, with our result as well, I think will probably cement fourth place for them this season in terms of the league. But with the Old Firm drawing each other, it kind of opens up the cup a little bit more for the opportunity for a team to go on a run and try and get to Hampden. And if we were looking at ties we wouldn't have fancied, Pittodrie is probably one of them. But at the end of the day, I know we've just came off the back of a bad result, but I'm hoping it was just a bad day at the office all round. You know, it's a massive opportunity for both clubs. You already know who you're potentially getting in the quarterfinals. You've got a home tie waiting for you against most likely Dundee United, which I think both teams would probably fancy themselves as well. So it's a big opportunity, but it's difficult to see what kind of Aberdeen we're going to expect. Not 100% sure what the situation is with Stephen Glass, if he's going to be in the dugout or not for this game. I know he's had to go through a spell of quarantine from coming over from America. So we don't know if it's still going to be Sheeran in the dugout. But I kind of watched the highlights of the game against St Johnstone, and they looked a bit more of a threat going forward, Aberdeen. They've obviously been a bit punchless in recent weeks, but they did look like they were creating a little bit more. They have Hornby back fit, which will probably make a difference to them, and Hendry will be back available. Obviously couldn't play at the weekend because it was against St Johnstone. So I think it's going to be a really tough game. And as I say, it's a wee bit unpredictable because you don't know what the situation is if, you know, that new manager bounce, so to speak. You know, Glass coming in, players will be looking to impress, and what better opportunity than getting your club to the quarterfinals of a cup competition.
I think it's absolutely great as well that Premier Sports have forked out all this money for the Scottish Cup this season, and the team who's played on their channel the most is going to be us. I'm sure they'll be absolutely delighted at that. But yeah, kind of
Pleasing.
What was that?
Pleasing. Very, very pleasing.
Going into the game itself, you kind of summed up perfectly well. Aberdeen are just a strange one this season. You look at their team and there are players who can cause you problems, but for whatever reasons, it's just not clicking. I think they're such an unbalanced side from top to bottom. You do look at their team on paper and you're like, you should be doing a lot better. But in all honesty, they've just been kind of all over the place this season. But as you say, they are more than capable of pulling out good results. I mean, that result yesterday against St Johnstone, I don't think many people would have called that happening, especially with St Johnstone being at home. But yeah, that shows you how Aberdeen are still somebody to kind of look out for, because they can punish you. And in all honesty, if we come into this game anywhere like we were yesterday, by your thoughts on that, we will get punished again. And yeah, it'll be an interesting affair, because Aberdeen is always a kind of side that I do feel that we do play well against. We don't always get the result that reflects that, but they are that kind of team who, apart from this season, always manage to do that extra something to get the win, to get themselves over the line. And in a cup competition, that's always ever so vital in like a 90-minute setting. But yeah, not a team that we should overly fear, but something I think is going to be a very close and competitive game.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't obviously watch I couldn't watch all of their game or whatever yesterday, but you know, from the clips they showed on Sportscene, it looked like they're trying to play it from the back almost, Aberdeen. You know, and for me, I don't think they've got the players to do that, and I think that could be something that we try to exploit. Obviously, we know how good we are in the press. We know how good we are at closing down and intercepting. You just got to look at that Sean Byrne goal, you know, against Dundee United, that epitomises this team, you know, the club over the last number of years. I think if you know, we're at it and we're, you know, pressing from the front line and things like that, the likes of Pittman, Emmanuel Thomas, if he can close down people, you know, the likes of Considine and Hoban, I think Joe Lewis as well. For me, Joe Lewis, a top goalkeeper, but he's not one of these. He's not Ederson. He's not gonna, you know, ping 40-yard passes and pass it out to the centre halves. Same with Considine and Hoban. I don't think, you know, they're 6'4", 6'5". They're not proper nice footballers trying to be midfielders from the back. So I think they're there to be got at, certainly. Nothing to fear in a way. Obviously, not a great tie at all. You know, going up to Pittodrie again, you know, it could have been much more comfortable for us in a few other games. But again, as you have said, we've beaten them already up there, but I thought we were fairly comfortable in that game. But yeah, I'm just hoping that they don't have that new manager bounce. But, you know, fancy us, why not? You know, it'll be a very, very tight game. I don't think it'll be, I think it'll be a wee bit eye bleeding at times, probably. But I'm confident in us to go and get the job done. And as you said as well, quarter-final tie, by the way, had they taken that, you know, Dundee United or Forfar at home, it's a great chance for a semi-final. Obviously, fingers crossed we can beat Aberdeen first, though.
I think the game up at Pittodrie that we won earlier in the season, I think a great deal of our success is, as you mentioned, Bruni, it was our pressing game that night. It was a joy to watch, actually, especially with Pittman, Holt and Steve Lawson. They were biting at folks' ankles in the middle of the park, and they didn't allow Aberdeen to settle into the game at all and almost play into our hands by being a bit more direct. You know, we didn't allow them to kind of play through the thirds at all because of our pressing game that night. And I think the last couple of games, Jet's actually caused them a lot of problems. He's really occupied the centre halves in both those games. I'd arguably say the game up at Pittodrie was one of his best since he's arrived at the club. So I think he made a big difference in those games because, you know, as much as Robbo tries to put himself about, when he was playing against them, it's very difficult when you're playing against guys who are 6 foot plus, whilst Jet has that kind of natural physicality about him. So I think that's things that Davey's going to need to look at and try and replicate. It might be the opportunity to bring Steve Lawson in again, if he's available for that energy that he gives you in the middle of the park, in terms of pressing the ball. In terms of the team, I think it's quite easy to potentially make changes after a 6-0 defeat. What sort of changes do you see David potentially making?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, because it does seem as if this is the sort of settled 11, and I guess the only ones as usual, I think we talked about this last time, is probably Josh Mullen coming in for maybe one of the wide players. The whole season I've kind of advocated that I want to see us play with 2 wingers at once. I do feel like we miss out on that, having that complete balance. I know the likes of Sibbald and that can do a job like on the kind of other side, but I would just like to see kind of natural players in that area. And I think with the way that Aberdeen can play sometimes, with the likes of the wing back kind of like system, you can get the space in behind them and cause them issues, especially if we have full backs going over with our wingers as well. So maybe Sibbald off for Mullen. Obviously Sibbald went off at half time. But other than that, I don't see an awful lot being changed, in all honesty. Maybe we could see Diani starting from the beginning, but do you really drop Holt or Bartley in that case? I don't really see that happening personally, but yeah, I don't think, as you say, there could be a whole lot of changes made, probably other than McCrory, based on your opinions of the game against Celtic. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, I don't really see an awful lot being changed here.
You mentioned Steve Lawson earlier, Ewan. I'd like to see him come in, just purely on the fact that I think sometimes over the season, you know, there are players that play in games against certain teams that they play really well against, and I think Steve Lawson always does a job against Aberdeen, especially this season. So I'd like to see him in. Serrano as well, I thought was terrific in the game at Pittodrie, but I don't know what's happening with that one. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. Obviously, I think he'll be going back to Monaco. I don't think there's a chance of us keeping him, unfortunately. So I think maybe Davies got one eye on that. You know, Jackson Longridge, I don't think's done much wrong at all since he's come in. So I think maybe, you know, with Serrano going back, he's maybe in these post-split fixtures looking at who have I got for next season, etc. So maybe we won't see Serrano, although I would like to. Yeah, wouldn't be against seeing Diani from the start, but I do think it's a winnable game. I wouldn't say he's a risk. Obviously, he's been signed for the first team and things, but maybe it's a wee bit too early days. But on the Sibbald thing, I really like Craig Sibbald on that right. I think it offers, you know, it allows him to tuck in a little bit. It allows Devlin to go wide and overlap him. I think and he's been man of the match the last 2 or 3 games, obviously excluding Saturday there. But, you know, against Hamilton he was outstanding. Against Hibs he was outstanding as well. And you think he was man of the match last weekend against Wraith as well. So maybe Alan Forrest hasn't really done it the last couple of weeks. Maybe Josh Mullen out on the left.
Don't say Alan Forrest hasn't done it. Angus will cry. Angus will cry. He loves Buyal.
I'm a big fan of Alan Forrest, don't get me wrong, but maybe I'd quite like to see, he's come off the bench a few times on the left, Josh Mullen, but I'd quite like to see him on the left. You know, he's great on the right wing, delivery's fantastic, but I'd quite like to see him out on the left-hand side, cutting in at times and trying to pick out a man from those areas. You know, we saw, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Hamilton again. He was out on the left, he cut inside, fired one at the bar, nearly a goal of the season contender if that had gone in. But yeah, it's tough to pick a team, isn't it? I just hope that we're at it. You know, if we play that well, you know, if we play as well as we did against the likes of Hamilton, against the likes of Hibs the last couple of weeks, I think we'll give them a right good game.
I think in terms of changes, I think one that might come out, Jason Holt. Potentially, I think, as you say, Sibbald, I know he came off at half time yesterday, but I think his recent performances have been really good. And I think even, you know, if you're looking at Player of the Year contenders, I think even when we were in a really rough patch of form at the start of the season, I think Sibbald was one of the kind of rare players that kind of shone even in that difficult period. And I think Colt's not had his best game the last few weeks, last 2-3 games. So I could see him coming out. As I say, I fancy seeing Steve Lawson just for that little bit of energy that it gives you. And I think he has a real good knack at kind of getting a toe in here and there, winning little 50-50s. And I think, as I say, the success that we saw up at Pittodrie early in the season, I think he was a massive part of that performance. So I'd like to maybe see him come in that position, maybe playing deeper with Bartley, or you can put Sibbald in there and Lawson can go wide, etc. But I think any changes that Davy does make are going to be pretty justified after the game at Celtic Park. But let's go on to predictions then. Let's be honest, Bruni, you picked up a point, but the rest of us had an absolute stinker with our overconfidence going into play Celtic. So Angus, we'll start with you. What are you expecting at Pittodrie?
I think it's going to be quite a very, very competitive game, and in all honesty, I could see this going all the way. I could see this being a 0-0 and going to extra time. So
don't say that.
I'm going to go for I picked 0-0 for the Celtic game. I'm going to go for 0-0 and for Livi to win on penalties. I think it's going to be quite a shite game for the Premier Sports viewers to watch, and hopefully we come out victorious at the very end of it. I don't think it's going to be very pleasant enjoying for us, but hopefully that one that we'll be celebrating at the end of the 130 minutes odd.
Tell you what, Premier Sports have not got their money worth with their games this season, if that's anything to go by, because none of the games have been a spectacle. Bruni, you've been talking quite confidently about this game, so I'm expecting a positive result from you. I can see
the headlines already. Glass shattered on Aberdeen debut. There we go.
That's what gets you a degree in journalism, folks, for those that are listening.
Yeah, there's a wee pun, play on words for you guys. A familiar one for Aberdeen fans. Aberdeen 0, Livingston 1.
I'm not going to lie, I'm not overly confident after that drubbing at Celtic Park. And normally I am quite positive, but I think our Scottish Cup run is going to come to that abrupt halt. I think Aberdeen are going to see the game out 1-0. 1-0 Aberdeen.
Somebody check on that man. The most positive man in football, and he's predicting a loss.
I wouldn't say I am the most positive man in football. But nah, hopefully I'm wrong, and we get into the next round of the Cup.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in week in and week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Angus said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search for Talk Livi and you'll find us there. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode that we've done over the last few years.
But that's all from us for this week. Thank you very much again for tuning in. For now though, from all of us here at the official Talk Livi podcast, we hope you have a great week, and hopefully we can bounce back next weekend against Aberdeen.
Livingston, a love will never die. West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ammonvale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston. Arminville, Lions Roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realise our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.